Welcome to the Cincy Postcast. I'm your host, Kevin Wallace, and before we get into today's episode, I want to tell you about our sponsors, Streetside Brewery, a fantastic local Cincinnati brewery here. Well, get this, in Cincinnati. Now, they're located over on the east side in the Columbia-Tusculum neighborhood. Their bar is awesome. And again, I have said this over and over and over again on this podcast, and I will continue. It is a really cool setup. They have an awesome outdoor patio space. They've got a really nice, chill interior space. The production room there is awesome. And they have a huge variety of beers on tap. I feel like I don't talk enough about what is on tap. They are great at just about everything that they make. I honest to God have not had a bad beer from them. I love the blonde ale, the Stay Golden. That is always a good one for me. Or the one that I know a lot of people love and I love as well, the Sabra, the New England IPA. Fantastic stuff from them. But a big attraction for Streetside is the events. They do a lot of events, and coming up this weekend, Saturday, June 8th, they've got some live music in the tap room from 3 to 6. That is Daniel Berman and Roman Marion on that one. And then Sunday, in the afternoon, not an early one for this one. I was thinking it was early morning because it's Formula One, a Canadian Grand Prix watch party. Finally catch one of those at a normal, decent hour. You don't have to get up at 5 a.m. to watch Formula One. You can catch that one again, 2 p.m. on Sunday, June 9th. If you're trying to get to Streetside Brewery, well, you would head on over to 4003 Eastern Avenue. Just an awesome place again, and a huge thank you to Streetside for sponsoring today's episode. And on today's episode, well, it's sort of the bye week, bye week. There's a couple of weeks off for FCC, so a little different episode for you. In part one, it's honestly just a lot of gloating about Columbus losing in the CONCACAF Champions League final. And who wouldn't be happy about that? We run down the list of excuses as to why Columbus lost, and we laugh and laugh and laugh at all of them. In part two, it's a rebroadcast, a re-airing of the Mitch Hildebrandt interview. If you were not around when we did this, and based on the download numbers, almost nobody was. You might have missed this one. We interviewed FC Cincinnati legend, and I truly mean that, legend of the game, Mitch Hildebrandt, back in 2022 in one of our first 10 episodes ever. Not a lot of people got to hear it, so we want to bring it back as it was in 2022 for the show, so you can listen to that, catch up on some old postcast lore, right? And then part three, it's the latest edition of the Soccer Blog Book Club. Put it all together, and you've got yourselves a mid-season, off-season postcast. Joining me to talk about all of that and more, I'm joined by two gentlemen sitting back, relaxing, enjoying the break, enjoying how the break has started off for FC Cincinnati coming out of the weekend. Joined by the Chief and joined by Grayson. Chief, what was the best thing you saw this weekend?
So difficult picking this out. This is do you feel like it's a Victory Monday podcast? Because I feel like it's a Victory Monday, and I didn't have to do anything for it. I didn't have to stress anything out. The FC wasn't playing, but still, it just good vibes today. I think that's where I'm at right now in terms of what I enjoyed the most. Boy, that's really hard to pin down. I'm just going to go ahead and say, as a preview for how this first segment's going to go, I just enjoyed the idea that a professional soccer team would pay sports scientists real money to have their players for weeks wearing these, sleep apnea looking masks as they ran on the treadmill, force all their players to sleep in a tent for a week to get more acclimated to altitude, but not do the one Google search of, maybe bring bottled water and your own food on this trip. That's what I love more than anything else this weekend.
It would not be the first time that somebody from Columbus, Ohio, was a little confused about the foreign culture that they were encountering.
Wouldn't be the first time someone named Columbus was deeply, profoundly confused about the foreign culture that they were encountering.
Good point. That's a good point. Grayson, how did the weekend find you?
It was a great weekend. Honestly, like got a ton of stuff done.
Nice.
And then right before the podcast, we had some nice weather. The rain, it was kind of earlier in the day and it was a little cooler. So I decided I'm going to celebrate Pride Month and go on a Matty Majackimo run on my Peloton app today.
Oh, nice.
And that was nice. Listening to old Matty talk about his favorite Broadway tunes.
You can't escape the Broadway tunes on the postcast. That's what I'm gathering from this.
Yeah,
that is
it's just
great.
no matter where you are, they follow you there.
I really enjoyed Miami drawing against a St. Louis team that had honestly deserved to get the win in that game. I really like that Miami has dropped points now, 2 games back to back. Sure, FCC did 2 on one of those, but like, come on now. That's not too bad. That's not too bad. If they're going to keep being 100 games ahead of us, I like that they're not winning those games.
Do you also enjoy as much as I do the fact that if you go on to MajorLeagueSoccer.com and sort the leaders on the stats, they have Miami leading in games played, which is
spot the lie.
Right. I guarantee you they won't stay in first place all year.
But what if they do? What if it's built in that Miami overrides the alphabetical tiebreaker?
That'll really tell you everything you need to know about this Mickey Mouse League is if at the end of the year they're somehow still number 1 in matches played. That the algorithm is there is nothing at all that you can use as justification for why they would be at the top of a list of all 34 teams tied, or all, what is it? How many teams are in this fucking league? 29 league teams tied after 34 matches played.
So make sure to screenshot that because somebody's going to want that for the 7.5-hour Jenny Nicholson video about the like messy experience in Major League Soccer.
God.
I found out who that was this week.
Well done. Did you watch any of the videos?
No.
Good. Okay, good.
I'm only assuming that you found out about this because like you follow the 2 of us on Twitter and we are artificially screwing with your algorithm on the Bird app.
So this is a peek behind the curtain. I got it on my For You page, people talking about this video. And I was like, why am I getting all these people talking about this like YouTube video about some like Disney theme park or something? And I clicked on her profile and she had 1 follower who I follow, Carter Chapley.
Oh.
So that's who I blame for me knowing about this, which like, honestly, like I'll say this. Not going to watch the video, probably. Well, certainly not going to watch like all of it.
Right.
We got a long break.
My 4-hour video I watched this year has already passed. That was the Rebel Moon part 1 and 2.
Great piece of content that was.
But I do respect I do respect a hater, and it does sound like it was A+ level hating.
I don't even know that you can say it's A+ level hating when it's just factually accurate. That so what if you
That's the best kind of hating is like factually accurate.
I was saying, for the record,
refute.
I've watched every single second of it almost twice now. Yeah. So continue.
The video we're speaking of, in case you don't know, I think we mentioned it on a previous episode, it's a 4-hour takedown of why.
Surely we didn't.
I think we did actually.
Maybe
We've
talked about it. It's not clear if it was on the podcast. This is what happens when we start talking not on the podcast. things get blurry. Okay.
It's a 4-hour video that breaks down and takes down the entire concept and execution of the Disney $6,000 Star Wars 2-night hotel. Like, you probably could have had a 30-second video of these dipshits made a hotel that cost $6,000 to stay in for 48 hours. But the real truth is so much more delightful.
Do they at least take your skis between mountains for you overnight?
You're not going to believe this, but it's in Orlando, Florida, famously where there are no mountains.
Oh, this thing was in Orlando?
Sure was.
Oh, shit. I assumed it was in like LA.
No. This was built on as like an extension of the theme park where they built a Star Wars land.
But isn't there a Disneyland in LA?
There is.
Yeah. And I'm sure they were planning on expanding the same thing too there at some point. But
the hotel version of this only existed at the Orlando location.
You're telling me people were spending $6,000 for 2 nights in Orlando?
$6,000 might have been the cheapest option. You got to watch the video.
Yeah.
Now,
That's like 300 nights of all-you-can-eat shrimp at a Red Lobster in Orlando instead.
Are you kidding me?
She broke it down. You were paying roughly $2 a minute for entertainment for existing on this thing. And again, to her credit, she did it. She paid out of her own pocket, did not pull the influencer card. She does a good job of just trying to experience it.
You can fly like fucking Allegiant to Orlando.
Many people do, in fact.
You could take a 15-day tour of Europe for the amount of money you would have spent 3 days on this.
You could probably take an Allegiant flight to every state in America and have money left over to do things. Grayson, I haven't watched this entire thing.
I paid a fraction of that. I paid a fraction of that to climb Kilimanjaro.
Okay,
the jury still knows what the better experience was.
Not just to climb Kilimanjaro. It was for like a 2-week trip where I climbed Kilimanjaro and went on a safari and saw like fucking lions and shit.
But you did not get lightsaber training, so did you really get your money's worth?
But you didn't get to stay in a
I did.
Oh, okay.
I've only watched parts of this. I've seen like parts of it. I haven't watched the full thing. I'm going to watch the full thing. Grayson, if you watch the full thing at some point, we should do a breakdown for a segment on this because it's hilarious.
No. You guys are welcome to talk about it.
No, I think you're interested enough that you're going to do this. And here's the hook. Here's the hook and the tie-in to ostensibly what is a soccer podcast.
Okay.
Is we watch this and then we pitch ideas for how FC Cincinnati on its site next to TQL Stadium can build an immersive 2 to 3 day experience where people go to the hotel and live some sort of FC experience.
Oh my God.
The Garriott.
If we find some time to watch this while we're in New York for the Red Bulls game, I could I'll be a captive audience, but I'm not watching this on my own.
4 hours is a long time to be captive.
I mean, you got a flight there and back. You can knock a good portion of that on the flight out.
No, I'm gonna watch Godard or something.
Your in-flight entertainment won't be working on this flight. It'll be a CRJ jet with nothing on it, and you'll like it.
I'm flying Delta.
Yeah, no, I've flown this flight before. The in-flight entertainment frequently isn't found in your seat back on this short of a flight. God. I'm in such a good mood. Everything about today is just a good mood. Kevin, why am I in a good mood? Why are you in a good mood right now?
Well, I'll tell you what. It's because the Columbus Crew failed, as so many have failed before, to win the CONCACAF Champions League. They went down, or should I say up, to Pachuca to play. It's a very high altitude. It's much higher than Denver, for example. And they lost. And they lost handily. They look good for 2 minutes. The first 2 minutes of the game. I did watch this game up until
sicko.
75th minute or so. It looked firmly in hand at that point. First couple of minutes, I was like, oh shit, they're doing it.
You did it wrong. I watched from like the 75th minute on once the outcome wasn't in doubt.
I mean, it wasn't in doubt after 5 minutes. There were two teams on the field. One was looking ready to play soccer. The other one looked like they really wanted to go back home. Like, it was very poor. Honestly, I guess this is the anti-spin zone. This one might hurt Nance's chances of getting a job overseas. Like, this team looked so bad, and probably why they've brought up some of these other extracurricular activities as to the reason why they were bad. Because, like, Darlington Nagbe is just passing the ball out of bounds at certain points of this game. Like, it is not Nance ball. It is terrible. It's really, really awful.
So you want to talk
before we get to the excuses?
Yes,
but those are the best part.
Yep. But I want to point out one thing. Okay. Because there was one excuse that I thought was quite funny.
There were a lot.
I think it was Andrew Wiebe said something like, Pachuca's manager having like 2 weeks to prepare for this game.
Yeah.
I thought Nancy was the best manager. Like,
well, they clearly haven't been focusing on the season.
You can't be like, I'm the smartest guy, and I lost because the other guy studied.
It's not a good look.
You got to study too, man.
Also, like, if you've already decided you're selling out the league for Champions League, which I do think is probably a fair, opinion to have, you can do that. You can sort of turn the first team responsibilities over to your backroom staff, and you can lock yourself in a film room and study Pachuca. Like, he could have done the same thing if he really truly wanted.
And like he did have a full week.
Yep.
To prepare before this game. And also his previous 3 games were like Orlando, Chicago, Montreal.
Bad teams. All bad teams.
All bad teams. And like, even if they weren't bad teams, like, you're selling out the league for Champions League. Like, what you want to do. Do you really got to like spend time figuring out what Chicago is going to do?
Or figure out what Pachuca's going to do and then go play against Chicago as if it's Pachuca, right? And then you can watch the game back and just be like, hey, did we hit these spots? Did we mark this guy the right way? And figure out where the gaps are. Because
also, like, it's also not like,
yeah,
but it's also, this isn't the NFL where like you can go and you can watch all the plays these guys run and try to get tendencies on 3rd and 4 and whatever it is. It's free flowing. Like, there's only so much film study that you can do that's going to help you when it comes to playing a game like this. Eventually, you got to go out there and play the game. Like, I don't...
Right, you're watching, like, film of Chicago, and you're like, oh, yeah, that's where they sucked. That's why they lost to everybody else that they played this year. Like... That
right there. See that spot on the field? That's where all of their money went.
And that guy sucks.
All of their money's right there.
All right. So how do we want to handle the excuses? Because the excuse...
Let's just go down the list.
All right, so you want to go from most bullshit to actual shit? Or do you want to start with the actual shit?
Let's work our way up. So, Grayson, you sent us out a numbered list here. I'd rather go 4 to 1 here.
Okay.
Because so I think these are terrible to hilarious.
All right. So, number 4, roster spend.
Love this
and this
one.
idea. So, like, this one... It's one of those ones, the dumbest person is out there talking about, well, the problem why MLS will never win this tournament is roster spend and that the salary cap limits MLS. No. In this case, Columbus spends double the amount on its roster than Pachuca does. Why does Pachuca win this game? It's because they invest heavily into their academy, which every MLS club is free to do. Famously, there is no spending cap, there is no salary cap on your academy. If you want to spend millions of dollars on an army of scouts out there recruiting from around the world to make sure that your academy is the best, build accommodations to bring players and their families from all over the world into your academy, there would be nothing stopping any MLS team from doing that and creating a pipeline of the type of young talent that Pachuca uses on the regular in order to feed its first team. And if you look at the alums of the Pachuca Academy, they've got some players that are really, really good. I think Hector Herrera is an alum of the Pachuca Academy, if I'm not mistaken.
He is.
But for the most part, they're just solid Liga MX players. But you don't have to pay them a lot because they're young, they're cheap, they're coming through your academy. So it's not like they're like getting superstars and then passing them along. They're just really good at developing the kind of backbone and connective tissue type players that make a championship team. So the idea that Columbus was somehow outspent by some Mexican juggernaut is just false. And anyone trying to tell you that this is about money is lying to your face and expecting zero consequences for it.
And it's not even about like the spend. It's not even about the most common complaint about MLS roster spend, which is that MLS roster spend requires you to concentrate spending on a couple of players and you don't get to like spread it throughout the roster. If you look at like how the pay is spread throughout the roster, like Pachuca's roster could be an MLS roster.
Oh,
like
yes. This is what I wanted to bring up.
Pachuca's roster into it complies with MLS salary rules.
Yes.
So like it's like you could build that roster under MLS rules, right?
Yes.
And then even like beyond that, like some of Crew's cheap, like worst players are like their center backs. But I've seen Crew fans on Twitter say that FC Cincinnati center backs, including like Miazga and Robinson and Mascara and those types, wouldn't start for the Crew because they don't fit the system or whatever.
What, being good at your job?
Right. So
Apparently.
you can't both say like, oh yeah, way better players wouldn't start on this team and then say, oh, it's because we can't spend enough to have better players. Like
Right.
you have like clearly you have the players that were selected for the system or whatever. So like while the roster spend, both aspects of it, both like total spend and how MLS rules require you to spend on your roster are valid complaints generally. They have nothing to do with this game specifically.
Yeah. Like this Pachuca roster is sort of
It would be like if Miami complained about losing to like DC,
right.
right? And said like, well, we can't like spend, like it's because we're constrained in spending.
Right.
Like, no, it's like
The Pachuca's roster is sort of the ideal setup of an MLS team, which is a strong academy producing good, solid domestic players as your baseline. So your baseline is just solid starters from top to bottom, and then sprinkle that in with impact internationals and what would amount to a DP signing like Solomon Rondon or Idrissi, who is an 8-time capped Moroccan international. Like, he's the exact kind of guy you'd expect on an MLS roster. And yeah, like they built an MLS roster and just whooped them. Like it is,
And not just
nothing else,
whooped
man.
them, they've been whooping Liga MX and these competitions for the better part of 25 years. I mean,
Yes.
I was ignorant to this fact when they advanced this far, looked them up. It's like, they have a sustainable model for how to be good. And quite frankly, instead of like making excuses, more MLS teams should be modeling themselves after what they're doing. Invest in the academy, spend money getting better talent there, prioritize developing domestic talent. Like, I'm happy FC Cincinnati has finally figured this out, and they're out there recruiting guys like Sharilla and who was the guy, the Alcazar, the other guy that they brought in? Apparently pretty good.
Ben Alcazar.
Alcazar. Yeah,
Nico,
like they're going out there and getting guys to like fill out the academy. Good. let's go. Let's get creepy about it. Let's go find some 10-year-olds and 11-year-olds to bring in and fly them to Cincinnati. It's a great place to raise a family, I've been told.
It's clearly the motto here. Yeah, I think of all of the things, the one trophy people should be aware of that Pachuca has, and I know we did the Leagues Cup preview last year, but I feel like, and I assume I had Pachuca and then just didn't highlight this, they're the only team in North America to have won a South American trophy. They won the Copa Sudamericana title in like 2006, I want to say, 2007. That is the Europa League equivalent of South America. And that is really impressive. That was back from a time when Liga MX was invited to participate in South American tournaments like that. I think MLS had a couple of years in there, but there was a good stretch where Liga MX was invited, and they were the only ones that actually won a title. So well done, Pachuca. They also slammed the door shut for Columbus representing in the Club World Cup, which I believe now the Seattle Sounders will be MLS's only representation in the Club World Cup from the CONCACAF region. So
I think that's right.
Well done to them. Yeah, there was a weird fluke where if like Monterrey had won the title, Philly could have gotten in on points or something like that. That did not come to fruition. So
we'll still have a host slot, won't we?
There's a sort of looming host spot for the United States, not CONCACAF, not MLS, the United States. It's up to U.S. Soccer, USSF, to divvy up that spot.
I wonder who they're going to pick.
Okay, so Miami, obviously, right?
Yes.
Everybody can assume Miami. But if the relationship between USSF and MLS is not in tip-top shape, giving it to the winner of USL Championship this year would be a hilarious move.
Or the Open Cup this year.
Or the Open Cup winner, assuming it's not an MLS team, yes.
NYCFC too.
NYCFC too in the Club World Cup. That's actually what I'm rooting for now.
I think they already lost, though. Excuse number 3 on the list. Cucho Hernandez not fully fit. Kevin, how does this one strike you?
If he's not fully fit, he shouldn't have been in the game. You put him in the game, you live and you die with how he performs. This is so silly. He's also hasn't played in 5 games in MLS. So what were you waiting on if he wasn't going to do this?
I remember back in the Eastern Conference Finals when Columbus was they felt bad about playing us when Obino Wobodo was not fully fit as well. And they were like, yeah, you guys have a valid reason not to have won this game. I remember that.
Yeah.
Do you remember that, Grayson?
Yeah, I remember that too.
Yeah.
It's
very nice of them, I thought.
Very nice of them to point out that our entire back line was not available. Plus, the team had been sick all week, and OB was not fit. I know. Yeah, I know.
Put a pin in that.
I know.
Excuse number 2, playing away. Now, here's the only excuse where I will give them their due on this one.
And I'll have a response to that.
All right. So every other portion of CONCACAF Champions League is home and away. The typical home and away aggregate with away goals as the tiebreaker. And unlike the UEFA Champions League that played its final on Saturday as well, they don't use a neutral site. So whereas the Germans once again failed in their attempt to do anything of note in London on the Champions League over in Europe, here Pachuca had the decided home field advantage by playing in Mexico, where we've talked about previously. MLS teams go to Mexico and die. It happens. It was noteworthy that Columbus managed to win at Monterrey because it's only the 12th or 13th time in history that it's happened.
Yeah.
And then in addition to that, it's been documented. It's at altitude. It's at a level of altitude that you just don't play at in MLS ever. I do think that there is a small gripe here that is valid for the crew that this game, if you want to make this tournament a big deal, this game should be at a neutral site or it should be a home away leg if you're going to give home field advantage to one team or the other.
So they did home and away in most of the other iterations of this tournament. This is the first time in like 10 years at least where there was not a home and away for the final. So when Seattle won like 2 years ago, they drew Pumas 0-0 in Mexico, and that's what made the match in Seattle the de facto title game, is that nothing of note had happened in the previous leg. But other teams in MLS have had success in different parts of the leg. Like Toronto drew, was it Chivas a couple of years ago, but had lost their home leg. They lost in Toronto, but drew in Mexico. They lost on aggregate. I will say it's fine to gripe about it, but also the entirety of Leagues Cup is played in the United States. So like, Mexico gets one, right?
And the crew had no problem playing Monterrey and Monterrey. They beat them 3-1.
Yeah, a larger stadium.
It's a bigger team,
yeah,
right? A much more expensive team than either of the teams that were in this final.
Yeah.
And the other part about going away was the altitude, and Columbus made a big deal about doing all that altitude training, right? And so you can't like make a big deal about doing the altitude training and then like blame the altitude. Right. But also, there is one Liga MX team with a higher stadium than Pachuca, and that is Toluca. And they lost in the like first round of the Champions League at home. They actually beat this team on the road and then lost at home and lost on away goals.
Ooh.
The team that beat them has a market value on Transfer Market of 7.8 million euros.
Oof.
That team is CS Herediano in Costa Rica.
Wow.
And it features one Alan Cruz.
Alan Cruz's team.
So Alan Cruz can go on the road in Champions League at a massively high altitude stadium.
Higher altitude than
Pachuca, and get a result. That's the kind of hard-nosed spirit that you get for playing for FC Cincinnati, right? And
yeah,
so
if taking credit for that, okay,
struggling.
good.
If these players, if these players in Columbus like haven't like developed that grit yet, playing like winning a knockout game on the road against a full strength opponent, something I don't believe they've ever done. I think that starts at the top, and it's an organizational defect, and I think it's one that probably can't be remedied under any circumstances. Yeah.
The other thing I'll point out, which will lead into point number one for you, Chief, but they could have gotten there earlier. They arrived late Thursday, it sounds like. They could have set up a camp all week and gotten used to the walking around at altitude, the doing the training at altitude, and not just riding the bike for whatever it was, 30 minutes with a oxygen mask on.
I do think that the state of sports science is to like limit your time at altitude.
Oh, okay.
But maybe that's just like something that comes from a chiropractor.
I was going to say,
it might not.
I don't think it works here. So
it didn't work here. But put a pin in on their timing of arrival.
Yeah.
For the next thing.
Maybe they were scared of something. Chief, what was the number one excuse?
I was just going to say they were going to win a cup, but then they got high. Give a shout out to my Afro Man buddy here. Excuse number one, old Montezuma's revenge.
Yep.
I'm going to read the
quote. Not based on the timing.
I'm just going to read the direct quote from Charles Boehm from MLSsoccer.com. Wilfred Nancy, now speaking to the media, said his whole team and staff were ill, stricken with diarrhea the past 2 days, emphasizing that he's not attributing the defeat to this, that Pachuca were deserving winners. Quote, "My players gave everything, knowing that they were sick also. all the team had diarrhea since yesterday. The staff also. So excuse number one is that they were pooping their brains out prior to this match and probably spent the majority of it all stuffed up with Imodium and just about anything else they could put into their bodies to try and keep it from leaking out both ends. Kevin, on a scale of 10 to 15, how funny is the idea that Columbus ruined its chances to represent in the Club World Cup and quite literally shit the bed on the largest stage this club will ever be on?
Oh, it's a 20 because, of course, the story is hilarious in and of itself, but I am getting so much joy out of Columbus fans pointing to this after absolutely, clowning us for
shitting on us, one might even say.
Yeah, aggressively shitting on us for suggesting that FC Cincinnati was dealing with an awful stomach bug that ran through the entire team in the week leading up to the Eastern Conference Finals. I'm so happy that fate went this direction. I could not be happier. This is the funniest thing that has ever happened to this team, and it didn't happen to us.
This is incredible.
Yeah.
Just the mental image is fantastic. Just that they said that nobody slept over 2 days. This is they were violently discarding the entire contents of their body into a Mexican toilet somewhere, and this is great. I can't believe that. Well, I mean, do we think they got it there, or did somebody in Columbus? Was this a Columbus-based issue? Because it's even funnier if it's a Columbus-based issue. That's something
they get in like Thursday, right?
Right.
And they already all have diarrhea by Friday. This sounds like a Columbus-based issue.
Or it was like a celebratory trip to the water fountain as soon as they hit the tarmac in Mexico.
Don't discount the they get out of the airport, they try street food, and there's a diehard Pachuca fan running the stall that knows, hey, this batch of tilapia has been sitting out a little while. Let's see if we can't get them these fish tacos.
Or just like telling them, it's like, no. You as long as it's the water that's bad. But if we mix some Gatorade powder into it, you'll be fine. Don't worry about
it. Yes, that's it.
These people obviously not Dave Matthews fans. That's all I learned about this here.
Jonah did point out for us, though, that violent diarrhea, one of the main symptoms of drinking urine. So something to keep an eye on with Cucho if this continues to be a trend going forward.
Do you think that any of their players pooped their pants on the field?
A Gary Lineker style, which if folks are not familiar, YouTube Gary Lineker poops his pants on the field is one of the greatest.
Was it Rajon Rondo? Was he the one that, or was it Paul Pierce? I forget which one.
I was at a game where Joe Paterno shit himself.
Well, I mean, that was about every game in the last couple of years of his career.
Right.
So he ran off the field suddenly.
Oh.
And came back in sweatpants.
Oh.
Lamar Jackson famously shit himself on a Thursday night game, if I remember correctly.
That's right. Somebody else needed the team held out a bunch of towels. I think that was for a kicker though.
The TV camera at the World Cup caught DeMarcus Beasley on the bench peeing out of the side of his short.
It's a bold move.
That's great. Forgot about that.
Just lifting it up and just it's very funny. You can find that footage on YouTube.
The best one is, if you haven't watched it, there's a famous YouTube video with a George Brett, former MLB Major League Baseball player, where he talks about accidentally crapping himself in Las Vegas on a hot mic, and it's one of the best candid hot mics videos that you'll find on the internet.
But
that's got to be the TIFO, right? For Hell Is Real Part 2 here in Cincinnati. It's got to be an image of Gary with the flames around him handing a glass of water to Columbus with the Pachuca logo on it.
Gary holding out a plate of Skyline and saying triggered.
Skyline and some toilet paper.
Yeah, just crew cat unable to play the game.
Oh, that would be funny. Instead of doing streamers, throw toilet paper at the next time we're at lower.com.
Toilet paper has to be the go-to here. Oh my God. They literally shat the title away. I love this. This doesn't get any better for us. And Chief, I told you this would happen. I told you Pachuca was going to win this title. They were too good of a team.
You didn't tell me though. Okay, so I've said on this podcast before that the rivalry is not a rivalry until, things change materially in the circumstances between FC Cincinnati and Columbus. I didn't think them losing CONCACAF Champions Cup would do that. I will say though, the fact that they pooped themselves out of winning a title, that is objectively so funny that I would rather win a wooden spoon than make it to a title game and lose because everyone was on the can for the entire time that they were, at wherever they were as opposed to training. That's really funny.
So, before the Crew game,
yes,
the one away in Columbus this year, I suggested that the path of building back up the rivalry, it would have included, among other things, winning up in Columbus.
Check.
The Crew selling out their season for Champions League and not winning Champions League.
Check in the most hilarious fashion.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
Like big ass check. So
we're a home win away and then missing the playoffs from feeling pretty good about ourselves.
And the entire Bailey singing "You Shat Your Pants," like,
or them making the playoffs and crapping out again. In some fashion. Like, this is good. And
yeah,
this is really good.
To wrap this topic up.
Please.
I know there was some
to flush this topic.
Talk to circle the drain on this topic.
Hey.
I know there was some chatter.
Put a bowl on it.
For the good of MLS, people should be rooting for the Crew in Champions League or whatever.
You're a terrible person if you were doing that.
No. There are very few unequivocal goods in the world, especially in 2024. We got two of them this week.
Number 2.
Yeah, this was number 2. I'm not going to say what number 1 was because I don't want to offend our listener base.
It was Miami drawing to St. Louis. I got you.
Yeah.
Clearly.
They lost 34-0, was it? Anyway.
I don't know. Whatever you do, don't Google Rule 34 with anything that we've talked about tonight.
No. Yeah, this was awesome. This was a fun time to be on a bye week. So
yeah, and you know what? The Eastern Conference Final loss that lingers forever. This lingers even longer.
The stink will, for sure.
The stench of this loss will follow the Columbus Crew around for quite some time.
Them making the final and then putting up that performance honestly hurts Nancy's job prospects more than them having had a sort of like gallant defeat to Monterey. And I know that because Pat Noonan did exactly that.
Also, before we finish this up, I just got to note that when they lose this match, you have to do the final score tweet that everybody does, like, you lose. Their quote was, "Our historic run comes to an end." I mean, props for using runs in there.
Historic runs, yeah.
After your entire team was leaking out the anus for the entire time that you were in Mexico.
And by the way, if the whole team and staff was doing it, that includes Yohan Demay. I just want to point out that includes Yohan Demay.
Look, if he goes on to be successful, it's because of us, but I've not cheering.
I mean, I guess props to him for finding a shittier situation than he experienced when he was in Cincinnati.
Hey.
I just wanted to point out with this, there is absolutely nothing historic about what the Columbus Crew did. Many MLS teams have, in fact, made it to this point. In one case, the Seattle Sounders have actually won CONCACAF Champions League final. The only historic part of what the Crew did is, to the best of my knowledge, none of the other teams pooped their chances away, quite literally. So,
boom.
Roasted.
Also, because we are sticklers for USL history for FCC, I'm going to be a stickler for CONCACAF Champions League history and say DC United and LA Galaxy also have won. And you know who also thinks that? CONCACAF. They say that they have also won this tournament twice. So not even the Seattle Sounders did it first. Not historic. Which leads us very nicely to part 2. And I do mean emphasis on the 2 here. No, the part 2 here is for a blast from the past, a return to a previous era of the postcast, an era where we didn't know what we were doing. Not to say that we know what we're doing now.
Because we clearly don't.
This was literally episode 10 when this came out. I had to go back and look it up.
We know what we've done.
That's true.
Right? At this time, we hadn't even done that.
There was hardly a track record to point to and look at. I think I was still editing these on Audacity. I will see what I can do to maybe clean up anything that might not have been perfect. But all of that to say this, we're going to rebroadcast the Mitch Hildebrandt interview. This is one that we've all agreed was one that was really good. We enjoyed it, at least like the conversation. It ends on a really strong personal note from Mitch. At this point in his career, because this was from 2022, he was coaching with a youth organization up in Michigan, but his primary income was coming from being a real estate agent. This is before he joined Sporting Kansas City staff and then ultimately ending up where he is now with St. Louis and their goalkeeping staff. So this was a really good conversation to look back. And Chief, this is going to make you feel old. Should probably set this up for a second. Who is Mitch Hildebrandt?
Oh, boy. So we're rebroadcasting this interview because it was back from when, the 12 was actually closer to 6 or maybe 4, quite a few less people. Mitch Hildebrandt, if you are a recent convert to the FC, and if so, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Mitch Hildebrandt was, I would say, and I would argue, the first real star of FC Cincinnati as an organization. He was the goalkeeper for the inaugural season in USL, was the goalkeeper on this club, I guess through most of the USL run, but most importantly, through the US Open Cup run of 2017 that saw the FC beat the Crew, beat the Chicago Fire in one of the most dramatic penalty shootouts I've ever seen in terms of goalkeeping performances. He, I believe, saves 3 of the 5 PKs against the Fire.
Yeah, I think he saves 3.
And including the final PK that wins the match for FC Cincinnati. And
he calls the coin toss, right?
I believe so.
And he decides to take them at the Bailey.
Yeah.
I think so Austin Berry did that.
You think Austin Berry did that?
Yeah.
Okay.
But so, Mitch, if you weren't a fan of FC back then, Mitch was the one name that everybody that went to the matches, even if they were just going for vibes, everybody knew Mitch. The chant that would ring out throughout the stadium was Mitch says no whenever he made a save. He was awesome. And before, I know everybody sees the thing that people do at the Bailey now where the players all run up and they link arms and they do a yay at the end of the game when they win. The original of that was that Mitch used to lead the entire Bailey and doing almost like a quick Viking clap thing that was just electric. Yeah. I don't know. I wish if you didn't experience that era of FC, I feel sorry for you because it was magical in that little moment. It's very similar to the vibes as they are right now. So if you're really loving being at the matches, the energy that's around the team, that's the way it was in those years as well. I really hope you like listening to this. For me, this was the moment when we did this interview where I was like, yeah, I really want to keep doing this show. And here we find ourselves now 2 years later, still doing this dumb show. So I hope you enjoyed as much as I had doing it. Enjoy.
Do you love Cincinnati? Do you love union shops? Do you love companies that opened their first retail location in 2014 on Main Street in the over-the-Rhine neighborhood of North downtown Cincinnati? Well, you're never going to believe this, but I have the perfect place for you. It's Cincy Shirts, baby. Look, come on. It's Cincy Shirts. Let's be real. But did you know they have other things than just FC Cincinnati gear? You know, they have some of the best Reds gear, some of the best Bengals gear. They've got old school Cincinnati TV t-shirts. You need a Cincinnati Zoo t-shirt, an MLS PA licensed gear from the players around MLS. Oh, buddy, you're going to love this. They've got that gear. They've got mainly t-shirts, but there's hoodies and hats and all sorts of weird stuff in there as well. Cincy Shirts is where you gotta go. CincyShirts.com. Link in the description. They are huge fans of us because they decided to sponsor this podcast. And for doing so, they will give you 10% off your next order if you use the promo code ThePostCincy. That is all one word, all caps, Cincy with a Y, just like their name. And that's not even just online, although the online shopping experience is perfect. But they also have locations in Hyde Park, Fort Mitchell, and Loveland. They print on demand at all locations. So if they don't have your size or the design that you want, they can make it for you right then and there. I've done this before. Just ask me. I can prove it to you. It's a real thing. Again, Cincy Shirts, awesome folks. They've got all of the stuff you need when it comes to merch. So check them out. Again, CincyShirts.com, those couple of locations. Tell them we sent you, and they'll knock 10% off of your order. Promo code ThePostCincy, all one word, all caps. Thank you, Cincy Shirts, for sponsoring this episode. Ladies and gentlemen, I mean, come on. Does he need an introduction? What am I doing here? This is Mitch Hildebrandt. Top 5 FC Cincinnati players all time. Top 3, easily. I said earlier in this episode, the short list for people who'd get a statue built outside of TQL Stadium. Mitch, thank you so much for coming on the postcast.
No, I appreciate you guys having me. Thanks. I'm really looking forward to this one, so it's gonna be fun.
Oh man, we were just talking about this. You know, we honestly, and I'll speak for myself specifically here, a little starstruck, man. Like as we were becoming fans of FC Cincinnati, like you were the guy. Obviously, you had the chant and the T-shirts and everything else, but no, I think your time with FC Cincinnati were the good old days, were the highlights of this team. And yes, the team has joined MLS and is doing everything else, but man, I will tell you, in the Bailey, in the stands, we're still reliving those glory days. I don't know if you feel it. I just want to make sure I get that out into the universe for you.
I appreciate it. Yeah, no, those definitely fun times for sure.
Yeah, we were talking before you joined on that for me and for a lot of people, if you were asked to do one, what is it that sums FC Cincinnati up as a memory, as a moment, if you were to be sent to a piece of paper, draw FC Cincinnati, it's you standing in front of the Bailey at Nippert Stadium leading the clap. So it is an iconic moment. And I was the one that told Kevin, I was like, yeah, I don't get starstruck easily. Dan McNally, I've met Dan a bunch of times. Mike Watts, he calls games on ESPN. Nah, Mitch, though, that's a get for episode 10 of a podcast. So thank you very much for joining us today.
I appreciate it. I really do, guys. And trust me, I honestly love talking with just the people of Cincinnati, and you guys made my wife and our time there that much special. So honestly, it's just as much fun for me, for sure.
Oh man, speaking of being in Cincinnati, and if you're not allowed to talk about this, this is top secret mission. By all means, cut me off. Saw you on Twitter the other day posting a photo of the Queen City. Am I allowed to ask you what you might have been doing back town?
Yeah, man. So I coach for the Michigan Wolves now, and obviously FC Cincinnati is in our bracket. So, but I mean, I was down there. So right now I'm coaching our ECNL teams, which is kind of our second teams. I mean, we were down there playing Louisville, and then we were on our way back up to play Ohio Elite, which is right there in Cincinnati as well. So next year I'll be with the MLS teams in our club. So I will be playing FC Cincinnati, which next year will be a little bittersweet for me. So that'll be fun.
Oh, but at least you get to beat up on Louisville for old time's sake. You know, that's going to feel good.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I hadn't had the best of records as a player and a coach against Louisville. So, you know, where it wasn't that great of a time going back there with Kansas City either. But, yeah, I guess I'm not like every other old FC Cincinnati player. I don't like Louisville. So seems like everybody but me is just trying to get down there. And I'm the only one that really doesn't want to go there.
At a certain level, do you feel a little bit of resentment that it's like, wait, they signed every former FC Cincinnati player. Why was my phone not ringing?
Yeah, it was kind of weird when I just see everybody going down there, and I don't know. I had a good year in Atlanta, so I'll be okay with where my path goes.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, those guys are still assholes and still really good, which is super annoying.
Yeah, we were not looking forward to possibly drawing them in the Open Cup. That was not. I was not looking forward to that.
That would have been. I think that would have been probably outside of when we drew Columbus, when we were, you know, playing. I think that would be their big draw, right? I mean,
oh yeah,
it's kind of a rivalry game. Plus, it's, you know, I think the MLS and all that. It would have made for a Taylor Twellman comeback in Cincinnati, wouldn't it? That
Yes,
game would have brought him back.
absolutely.
As if Taylor Twellman doesn't need another reason to be mean to Cincinnati on national television.
Yeah, you know, I like Taylor, so I'm a.
Fair enough.
No, for sure. I mean, I'm interested in this. I mean, I was a fan of this team. I imagine anybody listening to this podcast was probably a fan of the team when you were here. So I'm really curious about this. What was the sales pitch from, I'm guessing, John Harkes to get you to Cincinnati? From, I mean, you're coming from Minnesota United, which was a very established team in the NASL. How did that transition happen?
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of funny because there was no sales pitch needed. Honestly, you're talking about, well, why wasn't my phone ringing from Louisville? I was praying when I left Minnesota that my phone would ring. And so when it did, and it was John, it was, I mean, it was a no-brainer. And, you know, obviously John being John, heard a lot of great things about Ryan. And so it was an absolute no-brainer. I knew Kenny. We used to play, you know, we grew up playing together in youth soccer, and didn't really know Austin that much, but I knew of him. I knew Corbin. So, I mean, just kind of the guys that I knew that, one, it was going to be special just to start something. Two, I think it was going to be really fun just knowing the guys that they were signing, whether we were good or not. I mean, I got along with all of them. And honestly, like, I played 12 games in 4 years for Minnesota. So I think it was just nice to somebody want me to be there for once.
Oh, for sure. I can't imagine that cutthroat world of sort of lower division soccer, and you see guys, sometimes they latch on somewhere and sometimes they're bouncing around. And I have to imagine U.S. men's national team coach for life John Harkes gives you a call. You probably jump at that chance.
Yeah. I wasn't really jumping. It was 3:00 in the morning. So I was more laying down when it happened. But
was there some small part of you that was like, I really, really hope John meant this phone call and this wasn't something that happened at the bar in the middle of the night?
Oh, good night. So it was funny because I woke up and I just never answer who answers their phone at 2 or 3 in the morning. I just so happened to answer my phone because, I was out of contract, and every time my phone rang, you just kind of hope that. And so I answer my phone, and he goes, "Hey, Mitch, John Harks." And I go, "Come on, who is this?" And he goes, "No, Mitch, John Harks." And I go, "John, if this is you, dude, it's 3:00 in the morning." And he goes, "Yeah, I just got off a flight driving back home, came from Europe. Just figured I'd give you a call." I was like, "Okay, sure, why not?" And I swear that's how it happened. And I called my wife, she was a coach at App State at the time, and they were on the road. And I call her, and she woke up like, "What's going on? Like, why are you calling me this early?" And I go, "You won't believe who just called me." And I go, "John Harks." And she goes, "Is that supposed to mean anything to me?" I mean, she's a volleyball player, so she didn't know, but it was just funny. And you guys say starstruck. I was starstruck, talking to John Harks. I grew up watching this dude, and he offered me a chance to come and play and start a club with him. And I mean, I was all in, man. Where do I sign?
Right.
So you come to Cincinnati, and other than as a different sort of experience in teams you'd been on in the past, where you're being asked to be the starter, the builder of this team, one of the first signings that comes in. What was it like being part of that initial class and sort of not having any organizational structure, everything's being invented on the fly? How was that in terms of basically inventing all the policies, procedures, everything as you guys went along?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was fun. And, I think what makes John such a great coach is that he knows how to treat players. I think he's the epitome of a man manager. He's, a Sir Alex Ferguson type where, playing a certain brand of soccer is important, but it's more about letting the guys go and be themselves and enjoy themselves. And that's the type of players that they brought in. And that's why we played well, and we just all enjoyed playing together. He gave us the freedom to do what we wanted. And the locker room was probably one of the most laid back, chill locker rooms that got along with each other that I had been a part of. And so it was just kind of easy to, you had a great blend of guys like me who were just happy to finally get a chance, and other guys that had just gotten released from MLS teams that had to really show that they should be there. And then you had Austin and Kenny, who kind of been through it and been those players, and were just kind of rejuvenating everything. So I think the players that they brought in were very, very smart to do what they did at the time of the club in order to make it work.
Yeah. Who in that first class was the harder to go against in training? Was it Big Cat, Omar Cummings, or was it Shauna Coley? Or I've heard Harrison Delbridge had a hell of a rocket.
Yeah, I mean, Harrison could really unleash on one, but it was probably 1 out of 10 that hit the frame. So it was either hitting a scoreboard or it was taking my head off. So no, I'm just no, he could unleash a shot for sure. I think, man, I mean, Sean was, Ugo was a lethal, but he was like a poacher. He couldn't really, he wasn't a guy that is going to line up in a fishing drill and bag everyone. It was, he's not like a Miguel or Joseph from Atlanta. I mean, I went in didn't expect to save anything about those guys, but I think honestly, Jimmy and Rita were probably the most deadly, like kind of in finishing drills. Those guys should just pick out spots. And it was really, really difficult. So I would say probably those guys.
Wow.
What do you think, Wida, offside or onside against Chicago Fire?
Definitely offside. It was the right call.
Oh, whoa!
Wow.
The hot take. Oh,
It
my
was
gosh.
100% the right call. The referee should, it was by far the.
But it was the call that got things to PKs, is what we're seeing right here.
That's what I said. It's the right call. Did I not just say that, guys? It was the right call.
Oh, man.
So you talk about that mix of guys that you had that made that locker room so good. In the build up to that first MLS season, as you guys are training, you go down to IMG, you're building this new team. What were your expectations for what things were going to be like in Cincinnati for this club? You had no idea what you were going to expect in terms of fan support, what the culture around the club was going to eventually develop into. But what was the talk in the locker room going into that first season before you guys actually made your debut in Cincinnati?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I talked with Kenny and those guys before we came in, and I mean, we knew that we were going to be really good for the level because of the players that we were bringing in. I mean, we knew that we were going to play, but as far as I mean, honestly, I came in growing up in Michigan. I played with the Michigan Bucks growing up, and, I used to play the Dayton Dutch Lions and all that stuff back in the PDL. And I heard that they kind of have a loose affiliation at the time. And so I was really worried about kind of that because of how the support was for that. And then I heard that it was kind of going a different direction, and there was kind of talk in the locker room about, is this really going to pick on? Cause it's always hit or miss, with USL soccer, right? I mean, you had,
Right.
And so we just kind of went into it. We're like, you know what, we're going to be good. We're going to play. We're all getting, we're all in a good situation. We're playing soccer and we're getting paid to do it. And, let's just go out and win games. And then a stormy, rainy day, and you guys show up, and you guys change the whole perspective of everything. And I mean, honestly, like down at IMG and everything like that, we had no expectations other than we were going to be good. Because down at IMG, we beat New York when David Villa was playing, and we had a good game, and we so we had a really good trip down there, and we knew we could play soccer. And so, I mean, I guess as far as everything else goes, there was just literally no expectations going into it.
Yeah, I know in that Nippert Stadium setup with the fans directly behind the goal in the Bailey, I've heard that had like a different vibe on the field compared to other stadiums where it felt more like the fans were on top of it. Could you describe like what that sensation was like versus other stadiums?
Yeah. I think it's super cool because you're above the goal, and you're talking down. I mean, the first row is right above you. In a normal stadium, that height of person is, how far back? I mean, I haven't been to Cincinnati's stadium, but think about any stadium, that level of persons, 15 rows back from the field. So it's really not, you can hear it, but it's not on top of you. And I mean, it gives you a rush when you're playing in front of it and they're for you. I can't imagine playing against it for sure. And it was really something special.
Yeah, they tried desperately to recreate it, and in the new stadium, they really wanted the fans to get on board with it. But I got to tell you, being in that stand, the sightlines were awful. We could not see. We could not see if the ball went in the goal. But otherwise, fantastic.
Yes.
So what was it like going out there that first time? And it's a USL game. They had sold, I think, to that first match, some 14,000 seats, tickets, which was kind of unprecedented in the USL at the time. Very unprecedented, I would say. And you walk on the field the first time, and just there's so many people, and it just keeps growing week after week from that.
Yeah.
What was that like to play in that environment, having played in the old NASL, having played, like you said, in the PDL? What was that like, and what was that environment like compared to what you'd experienced in the past?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most fans that I had ever been in front of was the NASL championship against the Rowdies. But even back then, the stadium's so far away from the field, and there's only a certain amount as an old baseball stadium. So it really wasn't that, intimidating of an atmosphere. But that first game, I mean, you go back to it and, you hear Jeff and people, Dan, hey guys, we got 14,000. No, we don't, dude. You may have 14,000 tickets that you gave away, but how many people are coming? Because right. you hear, I've been in Minnesota, and we have 10,000 fans. Where? And you go out and you warm up, and you guys aren't there for the start to warm up. And I used to be out super early as goalkeepers go, but there wasn't really much. I was like, okay, this stadium's going to be kind of empty. And then all of a sudden, just you start hearing you guys like walk, the drums and the singing, and even from the first time, and we stopped, and I was just like, I remember all of a sudden you look up and the stands are full. It was just kind of one of those, it was a surreal moment when you and then we had a rain delay and you guys didn't go home. I'm not sure I wanted to go home. We were all like, can this game be done? We're up 1-0. Let's go home. And you guys are still up there singing. And I think that's when we really knew that everything was going to be special because, and I've said it multiple times. I don't know if you guys, but you guys, not us, you guys made this club special. So that's what you got, MLS, not anything else. It was you guys and stuff like that.
Don't undersell that Open Cup run. No, come on. That was pretty pivotal. No, it had to have been a little bit of whiplash going from, potentially 20,000 people in Cincinnati to playing against, in front of 1,000 people in Bethlehem or Harrisburg Islanders or wherever else it might have been. Was it harder to get up for those road matches or what was that like?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you hear it all the time where, somebody has a certain team or somebody has a certain setup and you get everybody's best game all the time. Well, I think that's true, but everybody got our worst game because, it was, yeah, like you said, I mean, you go to Bethlehem and you're playing at noon on a Wednesday. And the only people that are in the stands are the kids that actually go to Lehigh that don't have class at lunchtime or something. And it is tough. And I think looking at, the USL, I think that's what makes the USL one of the toughest leagues. I think even tougher than the MLS. And I think that MLS is probably the toughest league in the world with travel and the amount of surfaces. And, that's why a lot of DPs and stuff, big time players don't come here and do well. But then you look at, even bigger players that have come and played in the NASL or the USL, it's just so tough to go. It's like when we played the Cosmos, they used to fill that Hofstra Stadium. You used to play in front of 12,000 people, but then you'd come to Minnesota and play in front of 1,000. So lower league soccer is definitely finicky like that. I think it's getting better for sure, but it was tough for sure.
And this is a take you may or may not agree with, but I also thought that impacted the officiating in games as well, that you had officials that officiated in the USL, they'd come to Cincinnati and it would be the largest crowd they'd ever officiated in front of. And it's a different experience to have 1,000 people telling you to go fuck yourself for making a bad call versus 20,000 people riding you for not giving a card out in a situation or whatever. And I think we got some incredibly inconsistently officiated games because the crowd got in the head of the officials too. I thought it impacted all facets of the game. The disparity of experience between friends and family night at Richmond Kickers versus everyone in Cincinnati packing Nippert on a Saturday night.
Yeah. And, I'm not saying that it was right, but I mean, those referees are guys that are on their way up as well. So, just like the players, I'm sure, you had 16 or 17-year-olds that are just now contract. They come in and get their minds blown at Cincinnati because they've never played in front of, 20,000 people. A referee who is just came from, a Division II game in college, and now they're reffing a pro game with, 26,000 people. I mean, it's quite intimidating for them. And I'm sure you guys, well, actually, I know that you guys don't make it easy on them. So,
you may be famous around Cincinnati, but still, old Guido Gonzalez Jr., I believe is his full name. Poor guy. I believe it was his first game as a center ref at this level. Handed out like 8 or 9 cards, and he just had like villain status as a referee for the rest of his time reffing games. And he's worked his way up. He's doing MLS games. He's honestly been probably the fairest referee we've had as Cincinnati. But that first game, man, that lives in people's minds.
Yeah. And referees never get it right, do they?
No.
They're always wrong. They're always wrong. I would never be a referee. Those guys have the hardest job in sports because they're never wrong. I mean, there's 2 teams, right? So you make a call and you're never right. So you're always wrong.
I believe you were the victim of the first USL VAR red card. I could be wrong about that, but you got to be one of the first.
Yeah, no, I was. So that was funny because we got it rescinded actually.
Yes.
It was as a pilot that year. It was a pilot program, and New York was the only one to have it because they were the only ones that played in a stadium. So in our league.
Right.
They were piloting it for the MLS. The MLS didn't even have it. So they happened to be having it in our game. And they gave me a red card. And then the VAR went up and he goes, yeah, it's a red card. And I was shocked until I found out who the VAR referee was. And then I wasn't really shocked anymore.
Talk about having a reputation, even in the video review booth. It's like, oh yeah, I saw that one coming.
well, in his defense, it was James O'Connor was the video assistant referee. So that was.
You go from year 1 in FC Cincinnati, and you move on to year 2, and the team continued to be ambitious, and there was so much of an allegation that this team sort of attempting to buy championships. What was it like moving from year 1 to year 2 and the team adds a new crop of players in? How did that change the vibe of the locker room, especially with John leaving? And was that first year something magic that couldn't be replicated, or did the things change with the team in year 2? What was your experience as like it sort of turned the corner as being one of the originals that stayed on?
Yeah, a lot of stuff happened. That changed the club. And from that aspect, I think you can never fault a club for trying to win championships at any disposal that's given to them. Right. I mean, you see it time and time again that you can buy a championship, but also you can buy losses, and, the team that's not doing that wins championships. So, both ways I think can happen, and you can't fault the club for trying to beat the best that they can be, especially if they have aspirations of something else. But yeah, I think with the vibe in the locker room, I think we went away from the mindset, the brand of soccer, just the enjoyment of why the club was what it was. And, I think, and it wasn't anything but just kind of a bad time and bad timing and everything.
Yeah. One player in particular interests me that joined that year 2 team, and I'm not sure what sort of stories you would have with this guy being a keeper, but it was one GB Fall. And GB to me is like a mythical character in this story. Comes over from the Kazakhstani league, I think, showed up for 1 year, was devastating, and then just disappeared into the ether. What was it like having a guy like him as a teammate? That had to have been a unique experience.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't necessarily the most normal person. But this guy left me. And yeah, he was an interesting cat, man. But he was just the nicest dude though. And he meant well and he worked hard, and we just all have our quirks, and and he can score a header against Columbus. So, I'll take it for better or for worse. And you do you, man. And, it's fine.
We were talking before the show whether we were sort of taking bets. Did GB practice? Did he train? Or was he the kind of guy who saved it in the tank for Saturday?
Oh, you mean like the pro days?
Yeah. The veteran day, if you will, the Tom Brady day.
Man, no, I think he, honestly, so the first year, I don't think anybody took a pro day. I think John was fantastic at getting the best out of guys every day, and they wanted to be out there and we wanted to train. And the next year was really more just trying to maintain some type of lack of what word I'm thinking of, but it was just trying to get guys what they needed. I can't really think. It was like, if you needed to train, then you train. It was a different philosophy in the team. It was kind of do what you need. You're a pro, you should know what you need, and because in the middle of the season in the USL, it's a grind. So I think GB was, he was the guy that trained. I can't think of anybody that really took a lot of pro days, but it was an interesting. He was an interesting guy. I'm just thinking back about I'm just thinking, just kind of about him. But he was fun. He was good.
There's a notorious story about GB that exists just in the fan ether. It's been told several times by unnamed sources that GB once got lost on the highway and just turned his car off and threw the hazards on and waited for someone to come pick him up in the middle of Interstate 75.
I hope that's true. I have never heard that story. I don't know. Well, I guess my question would be, who let him drive in the first place?
Great question.
That's a good question.
Because I know that he didn't have a car because he drove with one of us to training every day. I think outside of Corbin, I think he was probably the only one that didn't have a car.
Oh man, we got some questions. We got some follow-up questions for some people then.
Wait, Corbin didn't have a car?
No, not for
that's Northside lifestyle. Yeah, no.
So Corbin, honestly, like this was fascinating. So he Ubered everywhere. Before him and Annie got married, he was just kind of chilling. I mean, we all lived together, so it didn't really matter. And you're in Cincinnati, we are in Oakley, so you can Uber everywhere. But yeah, he didn't own a car, and he came from the fire where he lived downtown. So again, you pay more for a parking spot than you do your apartment. So I think just he didn't need one. And then he started living with the guys that had one. So there was really no use.
He's probably still bumming rides to and from Louisville and Cincinnati. We have to keep an eye out on that one.
Why do you think he keeps getting Cincinnati guys to sign down there?
See? He needs rides.
You need to ride.
They've added Lyft now. He doesn't need to keep signing former FC Cincinnati players. They've got 2 apps he can get a ride from these days.
Take an Uber halfway and a Lyft halfway.
The other halfway.
I love that. I do have one last GB question, and we asked Mike Watts this question. I got to ask you this question. Do you think GB actually bit Niall McCabe? What was the vibe in the locker room? Yes?
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know for sure. I don't know. He never was like, yeah, dude, I did it. But I could see it happening. I mean, honestly, like, would a grown man really be like, he bit me? Like, would you admit that if it didn't happen? Would you try to fake? I don't think I'd try to fake that.
It's a good counter argument. Yeah.
There's so many different ways that you can dive and look for a card or look for a foul other than saying grown man bit my face.
Grown man bit me. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, if he really did bite him, I'm surprised that something more didn't happen. I mean, if somebody bit me, I don't know if I'd really be able to hold myself back.
Right?
Like,
or would it be one of those things where the shock takes over and it's like you think in this moment I would deck the guy, but you're so shocked that another grown man bit you in the face that you sort of don't know how to react? Like,
you don't really know what to do.
Did this just happen?
Yeah, you don't really know.
What's amazing about that in particular is that, yes, the bite, the league suspends him, but he's still eligible for the Open Cup. And he goes on to score, I think, in each of the first 4 games to basically scoot the team along in the Open Cup. But I'd say by himself. It's a team effort. He's the one on the score sheet, though. But you get to the Chicago Fire game.
You guys are talking about pro days. I mean, he did that on purpose. He didn't want to play, Wednesday, Saturday. He's just the smartest guy out of all of us.
That's way too much.
He's back there consulting the U.S. Open Cup rule book, being like, okay, does this card not count for that? Yep. All right, first guy I see, it's on site.
100%. That's a smart pro right there.
It is. That's working smarter, not harder.
It's a whole new meaning to a professional foul. I like it.
Oh yeah.
But he gets you to the Chicago Fire game, and I mean that's the penultimate moment in FC Cincinnati history. And a couple of things happened to get to that point as well, which is that the College World Series wrapped up in 2 games. It didn't go to 3 games. So the game got bumped to ESPN. I don't know if a lot of people noticed that. It was supposed to be on ESPN 2. It got bumped to ESPN 1 for that one. But in that game in particular, what I think doesn't get talked about enough, and I'm just going to continue to brown nose you here, is yes, the penalties were awesome and winning in that fashion is incredible. But your goalkeeping during the match is top shelf. Like, that is what there is no grand finale if you're not constantly keeping that net clear. That was just an incredible performance from start to finish.
I appreciate that. It was, I mean, honestly, I have said that before. I was like, the penalties were good, but I actually had a really good game. But, outside of that, I mean, just the amount of effort that, and I've said this numerous times that, I wasn't the running around for 120 minutes. And I think Harrison cleared a ball off the line. And
yes.
I mean, there were a lot of things that that happened in that game that were just kind of could have turned out really poorly for us if it went a different direction.
So we're in the middle of the U.S. Open Cup right now, and just the U.S. Open Cup in general, that run was magical here for all of us in FC in Cincinnati. Probably, hopefully for you guys too, for the experience. The Open Cup, when you're playing from that underdog position where you are a USL team, we were the USL team at the time, and you draw a team like Columbus, then you draw a team like Chicago, then New York. Is there a sense that you guys are playing with house money, that we can be laid back and have fun? Or is it a tense, like this is our one chance to prove something to the upper division of soccer in America? How do you guys in the locker room view that Open Cup from the lower level underdog position when you're about to start play these games?
I think you go into it where, you just want to perform well. I think for a lot of us, you don't really know what your future is going to be in that type of situation. And playing a team like Columbus, playing a team like Chicago, playing these guys and it still happens to this day. That's a tryout for these guys, you're trying out and our game being on ESPN, like you're trying out for every team now, people are going to watch that game. And so I think in that level, you're going out to, you saw it with Detroit City beating Columbus in this past round. Those guys are, I had to drop that one in there. Those guys are, and I know a lot of them, but they're trying to get to that level, and they probably played harder in that one than they did on the weekend against whoever they played. And so I think that's kind of where you are in the Open Cup, and it helps the collective, but at the end of the day, I think you have nothing to lose, but you have everything to gain. And that was not just the players, but the club as well. I think everybody we have nothing to lose. We could get crushed, 10-0, but we sold out Nippert and we're on ESPN. So from a club standpoint, they got it right? Like they nothing to lose. And for us players, like we got there, we're playing, nothing to lose. We have everything to gain. So I think as a collective, that's kind of how it was.
So after your performance against Chicago, did you get a 3 a.m. phone call from Tata Martino?
I wish. That would. I honestly, I wouldn't have been as starstruck every day. I still, even when I talk to John now, I still don't believe that I have John Harkes in my phone number. It's growing up, and we used to walk our dogs together and stuff. I was like, dude, I'm friends with John Harkes. This is unbelievable. Then I go to, and Ryan, Ryan's a fantastic coach. That whole staff was great, man. I still talk to those guys. They're fantastic. Jamie Starr, best goalkeeper coach. That whole staff was fantastic.
And so as a part of all this, when you're going through the Open Cup run, I'm always fascinated by this too, that you were a household name in Cincinnati, Ohio. You still are a household name in Cincinnati, Ohio, to anyone that's a sports fan.
Hey, I will say that I was in Cincinnati for a night and no one bought me a drink. So,
all right, we got to fix this.
All these people.
I'm so disappointed in this city right now.
Oh,
hey.
This is not good. This is a bad look for Cincinnati.
I had bets with people. Actually, I had a bet with my brother, and he goes, hey, you're going to be in Cincinnati. You guys going to go out? I was like, yeah, we're going to go out. He goes, you think? I go, absolutely not. No one will recognize me.
Where'd you go?
We went to Oakley. I'm not going to say where. Then we were up in Blue Ash. I'm not going to say where.
If it was animations, I understand why nobody bought you a beer.
No comment.
More
people recognize me in Louisville than when I was in Cincinnati. How about that?
Wow.
They all play for the team down there. But
it was, Luke and half the team coaches for their academy now, right? So
right.
But what was it like though during that time period when there's people walking around the concourse with Mitch Says No shirts on? You're on the cover of the team book. You're interviewed on the local radio station a bunch of times. What was that like coming into a town, and then all of a sudden you were the celebrity face of this team? You were the face of FC Cincinnati. How did you enjoy that? Was it something where it was just a distraction to you playing and going on with your career? How did How was that to you when you came here and almost instant celebrity status with this team?
Yeah. I enjoyed it because I'm genuinely a people person, and I love just talking. Like when my wife and I would go to Sleepy Bee or something and people recognize me, I love that just because we got to talk and shoot the shit with people and just have genuine conversations like I am now. I mean, anytime people from Cincinnati ask me to do stuff like this, I hop on it just because I like genuinely talking to people. And you guys, Cincinnati, the fans there truly made our time there special because you guys are genuine people. And so from that aspect, it was great. The other aspect, I had it took me a while to fully, but mentally, I think people don't realize how hard it is for people. And I think I had a really tough time mentally with getting grips of not wanting to let mainly the city, but John, 100%, John, Ryan, the guys that took a chance on me, I didn't want to let them down. My wife that moved to Cincinnati for me. And then this whole 30 something thousand that showed up every weekend, going from a nobody to now having this on your shoulders. It genuinely, it was really, really tough mentally. And it took me a long time to kind of get over that, and thankful I am. I'm in a better place and can relive it, but I don't think people really understand what a toll that takes on an athlete, because you don't want to, you are where you are because you're competitive, you want to be the best, and you got there because of that nature. And then all these other people now are hoping that you do what you're supposed to, and then you don't want to let them down. And so I think the guys that do really well with it, fair play, but yeah, for me, it was quite tough. But I think what made it all worth it, like I said, was just, after games, having genuine conversations with the people. If it was another city, I think it would be even more tough. But you guys definitely made it fun.
So is that experience and having been there and gone through all those things, is that something you bring to coaching and how you talk to players and prepare them, not just as a player, but as also as a person, if they want to pursue this as a career?
Yeah, 100%. I think you always kind of see the bright lights and you see these players playing on TV and all that stuff, but you don't realize the baggage that comes with it, and especially for your family members. And so when I deal with young players now, and I'm very fortunate now and I never thought that I want to be in youth soccer, but I actually am fortunate I get to do that. You want to bring the picture of what it's like for these guys, because it's not a sunshine and rainbows, right? I mean, I slept on a couch in Minnesota for 4 years because I couldn't make rent. I made $600 a month. My wife and I lived in separate places for 7 years before we were finally together in Cincinnati. And the only reason that we were together was because John, thank God, got me my own apartment when they didn't give players their own apartments. And John was very adamant about me getting my own apartment because we had just gotten married. But if that didn't happen, she wasn't moving with me. And so, especially the lower leagues, but I mean, even in the MLS, you see it all the time. Guys sign a year and then 3-year options and they're gone, and I think speaking with young players now, you try to hammer home the enjoyment factor, because once you lose that, and I think youth soccer at times is going to a job like atmosphere for these kids, especially in the academies. And I think the academies that do really well are the ones that keep the enjoyment factor. The Kansas Cities, the Dallases, the Phillies, there's 3 or 4 of them that are very successful because they don't lose the kid-like atmosphere. They don't put so much pressure on the kids because it is tough when you go from nothing to everything on your shoulders. And it's, so I try to have that sentiment where, it's not all or nothing. There's too much in life to put all of it into just that one game or that one season or that one, and it's that type of thing that I think that we owe it to these guys and that's why so many ex-players are becoming academy coaches now that are coming second team coaches in the MLS. I mean, not just because they want to, because I think that they're the best advocates about what these kids are getting into.
Yeah, and for better or worse, you guys were also part of the first generation of players that have come through an American soccer system with soccer in the ascendancy. The last generation of coaches that came through if they played, it was either overseas, or if they played in MLS, it was to a different type of audience, a different type of attention level. And now we're getting people like you who have played at the highest level and on the biggest stages. And I have to think that's a benefit to the next generation of American soccer player who we are going to expect now to play in MLS at a high level and possibly play in Europe at a high level to help grow the game in this. So I think that's more imperative now than ever before.
Yeah. I think you're seeing it also. I mean, there's a lot of, and I'm not sure, I can't speak to every academy, but, when I was in Kansas City, like there was more emphasis put on the academy and the second team at some points because that's the basis, that's the fundamental base of the club, because ultimately you want to bring kids in that have a passion for the team, because MLS is so difficult as a club. Cincinnati is a testament to that. You brought in head coaches that don't know the league. And ultimately it's the same thing as bringing in a player that doesn't know the league. I am a firm believer that you need a core of players or the coaches or something that knows the league, because you could play, and we talked about it, Bethlehem and stuff, but in the MLS, there's parity. I mean, you go to, you go to Seattle, play on turf on a Saturday in front of 70,000 people. But then you go on a Wednesday, to old, New England and Foxborough, and there's 4 people in stands. Right. So, obviously Bruce has done a great job and they're a different club now, but that's just when I was playing, that's an example. I think, having people that have been through the American soccer system, because no one, who travels 5 hours on a plane to play the next day in any other country, in any other league. It doesn't happen. Right. And then at the lower levels, we're doing it on buses. So it's a different atmosphere for sure.
What would I don't know, youth coach Mitch Hildebrandt give as advice to a youth player Mitch Hildebrandt if you were coaching you back in the day? What's a piece of advice you would have wanted?
Enjoy the ride. I think I was so hung up on the end result than enjoying the moments. For instance, after the Fire game, I went home and went to bed. I was tired, but after a moment like that, go out and have a beer with with the teammates and have a good time, and go out to dinner with my wife, and go out and be with the fans and this and that. And I went home and went to bed, and then got up early in the morning and went for a run and did God knows what, which I shouldn't have been doing, instead of just enjoying the moment at that time. And so I think for younger kids, and I think for anybody in life, I think it's because you don't realize, and it's said all the time, you don't realize when stuff's going to be done. But I think you look back and you wish that you went about things. I don't wish that my career went differently in any way. I wish I would have been able to sit back and enjoy it in the moment than, getting to the end and talking about it.
Well, hey, we appreciate you talking about it.
and honestly, if it makes you feel any better, you made a generation of fans of the game in Cincinnati, Ohio. And like I said, there's thousands of us that participated in that clap after wins. We haven't had a lot of wins to clap about recently, but back then that was special. That was really cool. And it's stuff that as we as fans, I think I speak for a lot of us, that we wouldn't change any of that for the world. I think those were the good old days, and we didn't realize they were the good old days when they were happening.
Yes.
Although I left Cincinnati, it's still a big part of my life and it's in my heart. And just like Atlanta and Minnesota, it's holds special places in my heart. I'm good friends with Alec. And a bunch of guys that are on the team. And, I still root for the club, and it hurts when the losses come, just like when Atlanta loses, it really hurts me. It's I think anything. And I think the staff now, I have tremendous respect for those guys. I really think that they're going to do a really, really good job with this club. And I think the club will be returned to what it was.
Speaking of Alec, I watched a Q&A you guys did when you were at Atlanta together. And you were asked what superhero you would be.
Yeah.
And I believe you said Superman. Has your answer changed?
Only the best research.
Man, you guys are going back. I wonder if we both have the same. Actually, I know I don't have the same car. I wonder if he still has his Nissan Altima.
At least he has a car.
I know Corbin has a car. It's a minivan now, but no. I think Superman was a good. That's a stock answer. You know what? I think if I was more clever at the time, it would be something, like Aquaman or just something cool. I mean, everybody says Superman or Batman.
Alex said Batman.
Yes, we were just giving stock answers. We were backup goalkeepers to Brad Guzan, and we were just happy to be getting some love. We got a couple of Chick-fil-A cards for that. So, we were.
There you go. Can't go on Sunday, but any other day.
Chick-fil-A in Atlanta, Georgia is like gold, guys.
Oh, no.
Skyline in Cincinnati.
Fitch, you've been incredibly gracious with your time. I don't want to take up any more time than we have to here. I do want to ask one quick question because we brought up Alec Kahn. You played behind Guzan. I'm curious what you would be thinking or what you're guessing Kahn is thinking watching Guzan go down after having been the backup for so long. Is there regret for moving on? Is it just the professional risk? I'm curious what the feeling is when that happens.
Yeah, no, I mean, I spoke with Alec and honestly, like I was gutted for him. I mean, you never want that to happen to a player, especially a friend. Right. And Brad and his wife were fantastic to us. And we were just gutted, and I felt so bad when that happened because he's had such a great career.
Yep.
To have that happen is, but I think for Alec, it was more the same thing. I think because he had played with Brad for a long time. He was in Atlanta, even before I got there. And I think it was just a friendship, and you see a friend go down. I don't think anything else popped in his mind other than that. I think he moved on because it was time for him to get another opportunity. And Brad's been fantastic, and Alec didn't see kind of that avenue. And Alex, for me, I mean, Atlanta had it so good for a long time. I mean, you had two starting goalkeepers. For a year, I'll throw myself in there for a second.
Yeah.
But,
3. Come on.
But those guys, I mean, training with those guys was fantastic. honestly, I was kind of pissed that it was at the end of my career that I got to be with those guys and not the beginning, because the younger guys that was training with us, I don't think realized how good that they had at training with Brad and Alec. I mean, those guys are, Alec is an everyday starter in this league. Brad's obviously world-class. And so I think it was just time, just one of those things that happen in sports, but I don't think in Alec's mind, other than just worry for a friend, a guy that's in pain, and I think the even worse, I was watching it on TV, but even the worst part, you're there, and you want to just you want to go be with them, and because you have that close relationship with them. And so I think that was probably tougher on him than even just anything else.
For sure. No, it's a tough break, but we're happy to have Con in town. So we're,
I would be.
Yeah.
It was, when he signed there, I was pumped for it. I was pumped for him and you guys. I honestly don't think that there was a better signing in the league that you guys could have gotten. And I truly do believe that.
Now I will say, Mitch, your Mitch Says No did set a very high bar. We've not been able to come up with a chant or a song for a goalkeeper since then. It's just been, everything has felt like a sad copy of it. So we'll eventually come up with something for Con, hopefully.
But if you want to text him and find out if he's got any thoughts and forward it back to us.
Yes.
I can. I will. I'll get back to you guys. Alex, one of those guys that I think doesn't like to think about. I mean, he's like a coffee shop book reading guy, likes to get away. So I don't think he would even give me that idea if he even had it. Unless I fueled the fire and I was like, bro, like I have something, like I have something.
You better give me a better idea than the one I'm about to give him.
If you don't tell me, you're just going to start saying Mitch Says No every time you make a mistake. That's what you guys should do. I challenge the Bailey. The next time Alec makes a save, you guys should say Mitch Says No and see what Alec does.
The gauntlet's been thrown down. We'll
talk to the
people.
Alec and I, it's funny. We go way back. I got released from the Charleston Battery on a trial because they signed him. And so, so we go way, way back. And so I think it'd be kind of funny.
Or even just a Mitch Says Hi. That would be kind of funny.
I gotta come. I have not been down to Cincinnati since I left. Other than that past weekend, just to coach a game, but I gotta come down for a game. I think that's kind of that's a bucket list of mine to very soon. And I just hope that I can sit with you guys. I do want to see a game from the Bailey. So if you guys will allow me to sit with you, I would love to.
You say the word, we'll make it happen. And I can also promise you, I'll buy you that beer.
Yes.
All right. Deal. I'm in.
You will not need to budget for beer. That will be off the table. That'll be taken care of.
This will be my penance for Cincinnati not buying you that beer when you were here the last time, is I will buy you beers at stadium prices.
Whoa. I was just about to say that. I was like, well, at stadium prices, that's one beer. And you just go around the corner and to Nadtree and watch the game on TV. And
that's what my embarrassment of the city not buying you a beer when you were here in town has bought you. It's bought you stadium price beers. You said Louisville is doing better at recognizing than we were, and we've got to make up for that, I think.
That's a shame right there.
Hey, honestly, you guys can make it up for me when we come and play FC Cincinnati in the MLS league next year. And if we can get a bunch of people to come out and watch our little ones play, I will be gladly to go out and have a fun night with everybody. And I think getting these young kids to see what it's like to have real fans would be awesome.
Oh, we'll make this happen. Yes.
Plus it'd be awesome for me to have you guys cheer for me and not your academy team.
Ooh.
So I'll even ship you guys Michigan Wolf shirts if you guys.
My fandom can be bought for a free T-shirt. I'm gonna throw that out there.
I want them to have to move a U15 game to TKL Stadium because so many away fans are coming.
Yet all strangely bought their tickets from the Cincinnati area code. We don't know what's going on here.
It's weird. Jeff, we're bringing so many people. We need to move this game. They can't get in.
Oh man, we can work this out. We'll work with the other supporters groups. We'll like split them up. We can make this happen. This would be fun.
Perfect. I'm down.
Oh no, Mitch, this has been incredible, man. I don't want to keep you from your wife and your busy life of I'm assuming watching tape of youth soccer there. So no, man, we really appreciated this conversation, everything you've done for this city, soccer and otherwise, man. Like some of the greatest moments of this city's sporting history are thanks to you. So definitely wanted to say thank you for that.
No, I appreciate it, guys. I appreciate all this. Like I said, anything that anybody in Cincinnati ever needs, you guys got it for me. I think the special relationships that I have in my life came from Cincinnati, not only with the fans, but with John and with Ryan and with Jamie and with the players. And, and every time I talk with the fans of FC Cincinnati, I honestly just become more and more wishing that we could go back and do that first year over again, because you guys are fantastic. So I do appreciate you having me.
Oh, anytime. Thanks, Mitch.
As long as you have me again, and we can, have a pint or something, and, it'll be fun.
Don't threaten me with a good time, Mitch.
Yeah. All right, we are back, and I guess thank you to Mitch for having agreed to take our call back then. Like, we don't need to recap it so much, but again, it was like a really cool moment that he was willing to come on at that point and talk about the glory years. So
I know he works for St. Louis, but I think we should try to have him back.
Love it.
Like it was, I'll be honest. Like it was a big deal to me.
Yeah, I was nervous
2022 to have Mitch on. Like,
yeah, especially with again, no track record of a podcast. Like nowadays, we can at least mention other people that guests have probably heard of that have been on as sort of like a, well, if Matt Doyle came on, how bad can they be type thing. But we
were really just talking to ourselves at that point too. There was nobody listening to the show.
I think at that point we were just coasting on the high from the Zach Blandford interview.
Yeah,
right.
It's really
got us through a lot of dark times.
The Blandford one is just going to be a Patreon exclusive, I think.
We're going to lock that behind a paywall.
Yeah, it's too hot for TV. Yeah, which leads us nicely here into part 3, final part here, the little soccer blog book club. And Grayson, I'm glad you flagged this, because I was tempted to pen a response and God forbid actually publish it on the website. So
no, we're not doing that.
No. So yeah, I'm glad we flagged this one. So Grayson, why don't you set us up? What did you find for us?
Yeah, so for folks who don't know, I don't think we've done this in a while. We had a feature back in the day when we had segments.
They come and go.
Called Soccer Blog Book Club, which started as us reading a soccer blog and offering our thoughts on the blog, but it quickly spiraled to basically any article or anything out there that we wanted to read and talk about. And if there's something that this, I don't know, podcast, website thing has always been, it's been, I would say, a media critic.
Yeah.
Really probably the most fair media critic out there.
Clearly. Many people are noting.
Something that we've always done really, really well, which is probably the only thing we've really done consistently well. We've always been right.
Yeah.
And you could tell we've always been right because all of the the pushback we've gotten has been stuff that was, mentioned in the article, or, just stuff that would only apply if someone had not read the article.
Right.
So, it seemed like with the international break, it was a good time to return to our roots, So I came across this opinion piece from Jason Williams in the Cincinnati Enquirer, who, if you don't know Jason Williams, I envy
You're lucky.
you.
Yeah.
He is a sports columnist, I guess, in the Enquirer. He's like moved between the sports and politics pages.
He was a one-time, political columnist, has moved to sports, but also fills in, I think, fairly regularly on 700 to still do maybe a hybrid of sports and politics, but it feels like he does a lot of politics when he does the radio.
Yeah, he's like kind of the classic, like, I don't like Trump, but I have to vote for him because whatever.
Yeah, whatever the pet cause is at the moment, yes.
Yeah, it's just like crazy where he's like these two things are equally bad. Like, the guy on my right who I support is an irredeemable criminal, and the person on the left is a little annoying. So I have to support the guy on the right. I'm given no choice. But that's not. We're not here to talk about his politics opinions. We're here to talk about his sports opinions.
I thought we were here to talk about RFK Jr., the third option.
Yeah.
Old brainwormy himself.
So Williams, colon. I do not want to see that man's colon.
We can't escape it this episode.
Why Major League Soccer Apple TV deal frustrates casual FC Cincinnati fans.
Okay.
Wait, nope, sorry.
Nope.
Frustrates casual FC Cincinnati fan, singular.
Oh.
There's only one of them. Everybody else is a hardcore fan. That's awesome.
Right. Yeah.
Feels like a good move by Apple, but continue.
So the interest of, like I talked about, our media criticism always being fair. In the interest of fairness, because I've seen some people make this mistake, this first paragraph I'm going to read is not from Jason Williams. It's from an anonymous writer who is probably Jason Williams.
Straw man. I love that guy.
Message. I certainly can't be the only one who is upset because FC Cincinnati is on Apple TV Plus, and you must subscribe to MLS Season Pass to watch them. I would consider Major League Soccer to be the least attractive sport of all major league sports, and that's why it's crazy for MLS to not to have a contract so everyone can see them. If they want to grow pro soccer, they need to be more mainstream. I'm trying to be a fan, but watching them is very difficult. So this is the classic, the food is terrible and such small portions.
Right. I'm trying to support them, and I fucking hate MLS.
I am so upset that I can't watch FC Cincinnati because they're on Apple TV, and it's also a bad TV product. And also, like, nobody would ever want to watch this. It's why it's so bad that I can't watch it.
Jason probably cut the other three paragraphs about pro rel, so he probably did us a favor on that one.
I was going to say, this is a little world soccer talky, I will say, from this writer.
Right. And then,
the gaffer writes.
And then it's like, so specifically the clause, like, and that's why it's crazy for MLS not to have a contract so everyone can see them. So technically, MLS has a contract that is like the most accessible contract of like any American sports team, because all you have to do is get MLS Season Pass and Apple TV Plus, and you don't even need an Apple TV Plus subscription.
Correct.
To get an MLS Season Pass subscription, and you can watch any MLS game you want all over the world.
Yeah, basically the globe. There are very few blackouts internationally as well.
I'm not aware of a single international blackout.
There's a handful of countries where it is not offered through that country's official
I'll bet you can't watch in Turkmenistan either. Just throwing that out there.
So you can watch it anywhere Apple is available.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's crazy.
It's pretty
Right?
good.
It's like $80 a year, and you can watch it anywhere in the world that you would go.
Or $14 a month or whatever it is if you got to pay monthly. Yep.
So this is where Jason Williams' writing starts.
Okay.
Reply. Soccer is a niche sport in America and always will be. Sport of the future since 1975. I do wonder what your definition of niche would be if soccer is still deemed a niche sport.
Yeah,
because it's like
not like
it's not a niche
No,
sport,
it's just
right?
not.
It's smaller than the NFL. It's smaller than Major League Baseball. It's smaller than the NBA, and it's smaller in certain regions.
There's
than
no
the NHL.
There's no planet where a sport that draws 25,000 people in Cincinnati, Ohio, paying customers in a custom-built $300+ million facility is a niche sport. You know what a niche sport in this country is? Cricket, Aussie rules football,
Right.
Rugby,
Rugby.
Like
Yeah.
I would struggle to even say lacrosse.
Lacrosse
is a niche sport because of so many people that play it. Like it's played all up and down the East Coast. Like that is a fundamental misuse of niche. And it would be like what it's like is it's like someone who hasn't paid attention to the topic in 30 years, like is retaining those takes from 30 years ago. It would be like saying like, oh, anime is niche and only nerds watch it.
50
like,
years
no.
ago.
Right.
Literally 50 years ago. He says sport of the future since 1975.
Which is a slogan that the Men in Blazers have used forever. So he's just like copying their gimmick without any credit.
Why 1975?
That was when the NASL. When did the NASL, the original NASL?
Is that when the
debut?
NASL? I don't know.
It was basically that. It was between that
It's like
and
the 60s, I think.
might have been a thing from the Sports Machine, which is a old sports TV program that Men in Blazers like to riff on and do references to. So
I actually met the originator of the Sports Machine. His name was George Michael. No
Yeah.
relation.
Yeah.
Massive douchebag. Sorry, just
That's hysterical. Yeah. So, according to a poll that I've seen from 2018, soccer is responded to by 7% of the respondents as their favorite sport. Baseball was at 9%, ice hockey at 4%. Where I think people confuse this, and I understand it is a little confusing. They confuse MLS for soccer. That if soccer is your favorite sport, it doesn't necessarily mean you're an MLS fan. As we know, there are plenty of Liga MX fans that live in the United States, live, eat, breathe, die soccer, don't watch MLS. Same thing to a lesser extent with the Premier League and La Liga and all the other Italian leagues. There are people that strictly watch the Champions League, and that is how they consume the sport of soccer. Not how I would do it, but a valid way to do it in this day and age. I don't know. That's fine. So yes, very weird.
This is the same person who believes that there's like an invasion in our border. And he doesn't think that there's like millions of soccer fans streaming into the country every day. Like it's just like it really is like yeah, between me and my friends, we barely care about soccer, is his take. Like, if you don't think soccer has had any growth in the United States since 1975, you should probably be put down.
1975, I'm looking this up. It was the first year that the NASL played Soccer Bowl for their championship game.
There you go.
And I will buy the first round for anyone that can tell me who won Soccer Bowl in 1975. And I will give you a hint. This team still exists today.
Seattle Sounders.
No.
The San Jose Earthquakes.
It was won by the Tampa Bay Rowdies.
Oh,
damn! All right.
Okay. Who do they beat? Do you have that?
The Portland Timbers.
What? Both teams still
around.
Technically legally around. Of the top 5 sports, which in this case I'm going to take as the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, MLS, and NHL. Of the 5 most followed teams in that league, Inter Miami cracks the top 5. Granted, we all know why. but notable that all of the other professional teams in baseball, for example, have fewer followers on Instagram than Inter Miami. Is that interesting? I don't know.
This is wild to me. I'm just going to run down. Like, this is awesome.
Yes.
This was the North American Soccer League in 1975.
Okay.
They had a Northern Division, an Eastern, a Central, and a Western. In the Northern Division, the Boston Minutemen, Toronto Metros Croatia, the New York Cosmos, the Rochester Lancers, and the Hartford Bicentennials. In the East, Tampa Bay Rowdies, Miami Toros, the Washington Diplomats, the Philadelphia Atoms, and the Baltimore Comets. In the Central, St. Louis Stars, the Chicago Sting, the Denver Dynamos, the Dallas Tornado, and the San Antonio Thunder. And then out west, Portland Timbers, Seattle Sounders, Los Angeles Aztecs, Vancouver Whitecaps, and San Jose Earthquakes. The Western Division is almost completely intact from 1975.
I remember they were flirting with the idea of reviving the Aztecs brand for LAFC.
Well, there was an Austin Aztecs, I believe, in the USL for a while.
There was, which was great because they spelled it AZTEX, as in Aztecs, Texas. The Aztecs relocated to Orlando, became Orlando City, as we know them today. There you go.
And ML, back to reading.
Yes.
Oh, no. And here's one last thing for you. The leaders in goals against that year in 1975 NASL, Kevin, Shep Messing.
Who was like the one American star of the NASL.
His brother played for the Cincinnati Kids.
Yes.
Indoor soccer team.
Anybody else notice they quietly fired him from the Apple Studio shows this year?
Yeah, he disappeared.
Yeah, probably for the best.
And MLS assured it's not
missing.
trying to help make soccer more mainstream in the U.S. when it inked the 10-year, $2.5 billion deal with Apple TV 2 years ago. It was a money grab for MLS, signaling the league only cares about retaining its small but fervent core of diehard fans.
Let's be real here. All sports media deals are money grabs, but continue. It's the whole point of a media deal.
That's the entire reason why the NFL has so much money to spend.
That's why we are here.
Come on. MLS has never been a good TV product.
Damn.
And the league figures its core fans attend games when their favorite team is playing at home and will buy the Apple TV Plus package to watch when their club is on the road. So I want to say this. MLS TV has been bad. It's getting better.
Yes.
With the Apple TV deal.
Does he mean that it's bad? Like it's a bad TV product because it's not watchable, or it's a bad TV product because the ratings haven't been good? There's a distinction between those two things, I think.
Yeah, but I take good TV product meaning it's not a fun thing to watch on TV.
That couldn't be further from the truth.
Right.
I think that it's only gotten better since the Apple TV deal. And I think it'd be hard to argue otherwise.
Absolutely.
And so anyway, that leaves folks like you, the casual fan.
He's talking to you.
The casual fan who wants to support the hometown team in a tough spot. Either don't watch or pay $99 per season or $14.99 a month during the season for Apple TV Plus's MLS package. And that's an extra cost beyond your cable subscription or the multiple other streaming platforms you're already paying for. Mind you, it's an extra cost at a time when we're being nickel and dimed and then some on everything else. That part is true because I just got an email about the price that my Enquire online subscription is increasing to. And so I need to deal with that in the coming days. So I appreciate Jason for giving me that reminder.
Giving you the heads up.
You're also telling on yourself where that price is on top of your cable subscription.
Yes.
And it's why
I don't have a cable subscription.
Right. But it's also there's almost sort of like a not even cause and effect where it's like, person who believes soccer is still a niche sport also is the same person that thinks everyone subscribes to cable. It's like, my man, the target demo for MLS has never had a cable subscription and never will have a cable subscription. And like, if that's the problem with this entire debate, and it colors the entire debate about the MLS TV deal, is that it is people who are coming at this from the perspective of, well, you already pay for cable, don't you? It's like, I don't.
No.
And like, I'm one of the weird ones that pays for a cable substitute. I pay for YouTube TV. But you know what's not on YouTube TV? The fucking Cincinnati Reds. Like, you want to watch the Reds? You've got to pay not $14.99 a month. You've got to pay like $49.99 a month to watch the Reds.
I know you haven't read the article, but let me read the next sentence.
Okay.
Because it's hyper relevant to what you just said. I have YouTube TV, ESPN Plus, and Netflix at a total cost of around $110 a month. I refuse to pay for any other streaming platform.
So he can't watch the Reds.
He can't watch the Reds. He's a sports writer that doesn't watch the Reds.
The fucking sports columnist doesn't watch the Reds.
Makes you think.
I haven't watched.
Also, this guy wants to go and talk about politics. Doesn't watch The Righteous Gemstones. Doesn't watch the White Lotus. Come on, his finger is nowhere near the pulse.
Right. No, read a streaming
putting
service.
his finger down and he's be like, "Oh, this man is dead."
20-second timeout. 20-second timeout. Read his streaming services again.
I have YouTube TV, ESPN Plus, and Netflix.
I'm calling bullshit on this right now because I don't know any middle-class white guy that doesn't have an Amazon Prime subscription.
That's a good point.
If you have any, this is a call to the listeners. If you have any evidence that Jason Williams has an Amazon Prime subscription, please put it on Twitter or the Discord. If we get a correction out of the Inquirer on this, I'm all in. Somebody in the FC fandom did once get a Paul Doherty column to be changed without any acknowledgement that it was changed. And it's funny because like the underlying thesis of the column stayed the same, even though the factual change that was made entirely negated the entire point.
This should be real easy. We just need to go back and check his Twitter on Thursdays to see if he's been watching Thursday Night Football since it moved to Amazon Prime.
I was going to say, and Peacock.
Bengals.
Yeah,
I think they play them locally if they're on Thursday Night Football.
That's right. They do play the Bengals.
So
locally.
if he does have an antenna, he can do that. Which, sure. Does he have an antenna? Debatable. Probably got YouTube TV thinking that's how he had to watch the Bengals, which is really funny.
Or he got it like I did because you used to be able to watch the Reds until those thieving bastards at Bally Sports were like, you know what? Maybe it wouldn't be great for cord cutters to watch our product.
So the next paragraph is like kind of classic Jason Williams, where it like kind of like erases all of his prior thoughts. Live sports streaming is here to stay.
Oh.
The faster we accept this reality, the better off we'll be.
What?
It takes time to adjust your viewing and TV spending habits after decades of getting most of our favorite teams on over-the-air networks and basic cable channels. It's not just FC Cincinnati and MLS.
Did somebody else write
either.
this portion of the column?
Reds fans should take note here. The Reds could very well be heading toward most of their games being exclusively on a streaming platform.
They are.
Bally Sports Ohio's future remains shaky.
I'm begging for the Reds to go to a streaming platform of some sort.
Yes.
I'm begging for whoever wrote these last two paragraphs to talk to the person who wrote the previous paragraphs.
Maybe he let the ghostwriter write not only the initial message, but the beginning of the response.
This strikes me as an article he started writing in the middle of last season and then didn't have a column for this week and picked it up midway through. And he just forgot that his views of the subject have changed since then.
Cincinnati Bearcats basketball fans learned all about their team's games being exclusively on a streaming platform during UC's first season in the Big 12 Conference. Most of UC's conference games last season were on ESPN Plus, $10.99 per month.
Wait, is that real?
I don't think that's accurate.
That can't be
I
accurate.
think the price is inaccurate. I don't know about the UC's conference games, although Kevin might, or certainly somebody in the Discord might.
Wait, all of Xavier's games are on Fox Sports 1. Like, the UC's games had to have been on cable, right?
So
they were on a mixture of the ESPN platforms. So some were on cable, some were on ESPN Plus. So if it was like UC versus like Kansas, yeah, that made it to like ESPN or ESPN2. If it was UC versus, I don't know who else was bad, right? Iowa State, it didn't get so much.
Upset Bearcats fans overloaded the inbox in early January. I don't know if you were to call them about that, about how, UC basketball has always been a niche sport, and they've chosen diehards over casual fans or whatever. But
also,
anyway,
how many emails does it take
it's
to
a money
overflow?
grab? Jordan, the Big 12 was a money grab.
How many emails does it take to overflow the inbox with Jason?
3
billion.
If you don't want to pay the subscription fee and still want to follow a game, then get creative. I like to listen to the Reds and FC Cincinnati on radio. And with the Reds, I also like to follow along on ESPN.com's Gamecast. Sometimes I'll also follow a Reds game or FC Cincinnati match on the platform formerly known as Twitter. So this is This is like an insane thing for a local sports columnist to admit. That he listens to the Reds on the radio and watches the ESPN.com Gamecast.
So
just never in sync, by the way.
So there are 3 professional sports teams in Cincinnati, and my man's out here admitting I don't watch 2 of the 3.
I watch one of them.
And I watched the one with the least number of games. So there's 162 baseball games. There's 34 FCC games, probably closer to 50 when you add in all the extra games.
Right.
So let's just say a gentleman's 50 FC games. So 214 and then 16 Bengals games, 230. Out of 230 potential pro games played by Cincinnati sports team, my man watched 16 of them as a paid sports columnist.
I also love the idea, like there's a great meme that goes around of like getting ready to jump on Twitter to argue with people who watched the game and all I did was read the box score. It's like, you can't just watch the Reds via Twitter. Like you can't just look at Lance McAllister's reactions to the inning and be like, yep, I know what's going on with this team. Like,
Ellie De La Cruz is the fastest baseball player I've ever seen. On
He's
Twitter.
Literally never seen him.
I've never seen someone like Ellie De La Cruz before. And I've never seen Ellie De La Cruz either.
He really is like bringing his politics experience over to sports because he thinks Twitter is real life.
Yeah, that's it.
like what people are saying, what people that I see on Twitter are saying is the entire basis of like what I write about, what I think the world is. That's insane. That's crazy.
Oh man, it's so good. I love this for us. That this is one of the voices of this city on what is true in sports. I like this. Man. Just like, yeah, I understand. What's funny is his criticism isn't that FCC used to be available free over the air and now it isn't, which I think is a good complaint, or lamenting the fact that Apple can't work with local broadcasters in market to offer an over the air solution if one is available. I think those are fair criticisms there. But like,
it's that MLS took exponentially more money to go to Apple instead of staying on Fox Sports for a pittance,
right?
To be honest, like
and ESPN and Fox very clearly did not give a shit.
He says it's $10.99 a month to get ESPN Plus.
Was that better if we were on ESPN Plus? He'd still whine about it because that's what would have happened. The deal with ESPN would have been a game of the week on ESPN, maybe 2 games on ABC in the middle of summer when they had nothing else going on, and then all of the other games on ESPN Plus. cool. It's basically the same thing.
But then you get like the Disney Plus bundle and you can watch The Mandalorian too. And that makes everything all better.
Of course. Because if there's one thing that people loved about cable, it was paying a lot more money for things they didn't want, right? This is what makes me mad. We wanted the a la carte future, okay, folks? And we got it. You want to know why streaming is better? And I understand it costs a lot of money to buy every single streaming package. One, stop doing it. You literally cannot watch every streaming package at the same time. Knock it off. You can subscribe to one for a month and then go to another one for a month and go to another one for a month. And you can catch up and you can watch the whole backlog because these companies didn't figure out that streaming as a delivery vehicle for new content is terrible. It's so dumb. It's not going to work. So just take a month off from Disney Plus and subscribe to Peacock, see what they got going on there for a month, and then don't, because they're all less than $10 a month. It's great. This is everything we ever wanted. Stop whining and stop trying to reinvent cable. You're going backwards.
So this is where I'm with Jason Williams. I just want you to feed me the slop.
Yeah.
I don't want to like decide like what all goes into the slop and like track down the ingredients myself.
And here, the only thing that's more annoying than paying for a streaming service is loading up a streaming service and being signed out.
Oh, that is the worst.
So I'm just going to keep it rolling because when I hit the button, I want it to feed me entertainment and take me away from my life. I don't want to have to think about how much money this is costing me or fish my credit card out or try and get the QR code to work to log in and repay for something. Just keep earning me Sky Miles on the card, man. And you'll be there when I need you.
Rack them up. Was that the end of the article? I feel like
that was the end of the article.
Wow. This is a very compelling end.
You can have MLS on Apple TV for the low price of $89.99.
Like the Reds are also on Apple TV Plus occasionally. They do a Friday night baseball.
Well, he wouldn't watch those either.
He doesn't see the regular Reds games.
That's a good point. But yeah, in case somebody is trying to do both, you don't need Apple TV Plus to buy the MLS package.
But you should, because there's a lot of really good shit on Apple TV Plus.
I mean, it's kind of like the new HBO.
Wait. Hold on.
Oh.
We're not getting paid to advertise Apple TV Plus.
No, I'm going to clip this clip and send it to him and see if I can get a free AirPod or something.
Look, Severance is a good show, right? The Monarch show is like enjoyable enough so far.
Foundation was good. Silo was great.
Silo's great.
Morning show was
Silo.
good.
For All Mankind is one of my favorites.
For All Mankind was good. It kind of fallen off a bit, but
Silo was like better Fallout. Like it was phenomenal.
Ooh, controversial.
No, there's no way it was as funny as Fallout.
It was better.
It's very funny.
You can't. No way.
Yeah, I guess you can keep thinking that, or you can watch it and prove me wrong.
We've known for a while that Grayson is a diehard video game nerd, so that's why he is.
This is absolutely true.
I'm a Walton Goggins nerd. Completist.
Actually, I have found that Grayson is a big fan of video game adaptations. I think we're 2 for 2 with Fallout and The Last of Us.
Oh, speaking of, so first of all, I said The Last of Us was overrated.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
I was a little bit of a hater on it, although I think overall it was like pretty good. I did love the Super Mario Brothers movie from the 90s that we watched.
Yes.
And I do think that Jason Williams' haircut makes him look like somebody who would be playing guitar on the street in the Super Mario Brothers movie from like 92 or whatever that was from. And I do also want to put a plug in. If you're listening to this and you haven't gone back and listened to us talk about the Super Mario Brothers movie, really good.
You're missing out.
Yeah, you're missing out.
You're really not getting the full postcast experience.
You got to go back and watch that movie. I cannot recommend that movie highly enough.
You got to do a double header with that one and then the new one, and just see how they massacred it.
Watch the new one. They killed my boy. They killed my little baby.
Look how they massacred my boy.
The new one's fine as far as kids movies go. It's pretty good. That's gonna do it. Well, so much for recording a short one, huh?
Yeah.
Close enough.
We do what we do.
Yeah.
How should we end this one, Kevin?
We should end this one by saying...
Wait, I know the perfect way to end this one.
Oh, please, go ahead.
Go shit yourself, Columbus.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Cincy Postcast. It is a production of The Post Cincy. You can check us out at thepostcincy.com or just click a link in the description to check out some of our written work. It also has links to our social media accounts across all sorts of different platforms, including YouTube, where we are trying to do more and more video content. Please, dare I say it, like and subscribe and leave a comment. But no, that would be really, really helpful. Also want to give a thank you to Jim Trace and the Makers. They're a local Cincinnati band who provided all of the music for this episode. We love having them on board. You can check them out. Again, link in the description of this episode to find out where they might be playing shows next or where you can listen to more of their music. Also want to give a massive, massive thank you to the awesome and very attractive patrons over on Patreon. It is a voluntary subscription that people take out with no real promise of anything extra that keep this show afloat. And we are so, so thankful to those of you that have decided to take that commitment. If you do like the show, or at least just want to engage with other people who have listened to the show and want to talk about FC Cincinnati, MLS, soccer, or really anything else, you can go on over to Discord. Again, link in the description. Lots of links in the description where you can find a link to the Discord. That's where we are keeping the conversation going 24/7. It feels like it's a really fun group of people in there just talking about FC Cincinnati. And like I said, just about everything else. And finally, I'll say it. If you liked this episode, and given the fact that you've made it all the way to the end, I have to assume you either like it or for some reason cannot reach the stop button. Please share this episode with a friend or family member or someone who likes FC Cincinnati. The best way for us to grow is from a personal recommendation from somebody who likes it. And if that's you, please tell other people. And if you don't have any friends, feel free to give us a review on whatever your podcast platform of choice is. We'll take anything we can get. But again, a huge, huge thank you to everybody for listening to this show. I am blown away that anybody listens to this. So again, I well and truly mean this. Thank you so much for listening.